All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chuck, and I'm here from the partner organization. I lead the global team that works with the database partner ecosystem, and I have with me Sai Reddy today, and he'll be coming up a little later. He works with our global SI teams. So we're talking about best practices for building a partner database practice on AWS. To get into what we're going to talk about, we'll lay out the opportunity. There's a few interesting points to talk about there. 5 steps to building a practice. These are methods that we've seen when we work with our partners. These are the successful ways we've seen that they move along. An Aurora program, and 5 best practices that we map into the practice building flow. So you'll see what the flow looks like. You'll see how our program efforts help to support that and help partners build their practices. We'll talk about some additional resources and then some concrete next steps you can take. So first, I'll talk about the partner opportunity. There's a few elements here that I want to kind of lay out and we'll bring together in a few slides. So the first thing we'll talk about is just in the general market. When you come to sessions like reInvent, you come to AWS summits, we talk a lot about big data, we talk a lot about newer technologies, AI and ML, and a lot of great, really cool technologies like that. But the fact is that most of the world still runs on relational databases. Relational databases represent 90% of current database deployments, according to an IDC study. And what we also see is that a lot of enterprises are still at the beginning of their journey. So this is a stat from a different study of cloud computing trends that 68% of enterprises run less than 1/5 of their application workloads on the cloud. So there's room to grow. And then the third part of this is that we know that migrations are accelerating. So when you think about these things together, you have a lot of relational database workloads that have not yet made it to the cloud, and those migrations are accelerating. So you have an opportunity, there's a window of opportunity to be moving people to the cloud in their relational database applications. How many people were here for reInvent last year? So you probably remember Andy Jassy talking about Divi Freedom. And when he was up there at the keynote talking about customers who don't want to pay necessarily for commercial database licenses when they don't have to. They can be very expensive. They can have restrictive terms. And open source technologies like MySQL and Postgres have become really popular choices because they don't have attached license fees. They don't have support contracts. And customers know that they can move these workloads around without having to go through an audit, without having to deal with getting out of some of these things. So in response to customers asking for freedom, we've built a few different products, and I'll click through these fairly quickly. We have Amazon RDS, which, as most of you probably know, has been around for more than 10 years now. It automates a lot of operational aspects of database administration, such as patching, backups, provisioning. It offers features built in that are enterprise-like features, encrypted backups with KMS, automatic failover to availability zones. A couple of years ago, we launched Amazon Aurora on MySQL, which now also supports Postgres in production. And that took RDS to the next level. So Aurora is actually part of the RDS family. But we made performance improvements, and we made a lot of availability improvements. The storage spans 3 availability zones. You can lose an availability zone for Aurora and still do reads and writes. You can lose 2 availability zones and still do reads. And we're also starting to integrate Aurora more with the rest of the platform. So one example is you can call Lambda functions inside Aurora MySQL. So you can actually interact with the rest of AWS from inside the database, which is some pretty cool stuff. And then finally, we've added the ability to make it really easy for you to migrate. So the database migration service is a service where you pay only for the cost of the EC2 service to run it. And it can move data between engines. So you can move data from Oracle to PostgreSQL, for example. And it can convert the schemas. Schema conversion tool, which is part of DMS, can translate, say, PL SQL to PostgreSQL if you want to move from Oracle to Postgres. It also works from other commercial engines and other commercial data warehousing products. For example, you can move from Teradata to Redshift. You can also do change data capture. So you can do zero-time cutovers, and you can set it up in continuous replication mode. So as customers have asked to be free, we've provided a lot of technical support for these things. And that has, we've had a lot of partners pop up and ask us the question, well, if you're doing this and you're building all these things, why should we work with you? They don't necessarily ask it that bluntly, but they kind of do ask that. Are you automating me out of a job? And the answer is no, absolutely not. So customers need help in a lot of areas. And this has been true for decades when it comes to IT support, relational databases, and application support. The little yellow dot up here, RDS and Aurora really help automate in ways where automation is possible and where automation is really a great solution. Database operations, those things we just talked about, backups, patching, provisioning, failover, a lot of these things where it's much more reliable to script it. In fact, if there's DBAs in the room here, DBAs have been scripting this stuff since it was scriptable. So automation has always been the goal. But there's a lot more that customers still need. They need troubleshooting. They need performance troubleshooting. They need system architecture and design. RDS and Aurora don't solve these problems for customers. Our partners, in many, many cases, solve these problems for customers. Security, governance, compliance. We provide a lot of the features to use, but how those features are implemented and how those features are used is really dictated by the customer's requirements, and partners help with that as well. Schema development is another. If you're designing an application from scratch, RDS is not going to design your schema for you. Neither is Aurora. And customers still need help with their planning and strategy, so lifting out of the technology a little bit. Migrations, we have customers doing large-scale migrations, and when they do those migrations, one of the biggest questions they have is, what am I going to do with my database workloads? Some of them may be appropriate just to lift and shift right over. Others, it may be appropriate to completely refactor them into newer technologies. It might be the right time to do that. Project planning and management, staff augmentation, these are things that our partners have been doing forever that RDS and Aurora don't really address. Partners need to handle these things. And many of them are asking for, customers are asking for ongoing managed services as well. So once you've moved me to the cloud, keep helping me out with my workload. And so to help customers and to help our partners perform this level of support, we've spun up a lot of programs, and I've featured a few of them here. We have the Rethink program, which is a large-scale proof-of-concept program that helps customers test out Aurora for those who haven't really used it before. We have Divi Freedom that Andy Jassy was talking about last year. We have a whole initiative around helping customers move from commercial database to our open source engines, if that's what they'd like to do. We also have the Partner Migration Program, which helps on larger scale overall migrations, where we might need to do an assessment, a really involved assessment before we even know what we would want to test out in a proof of concept. Partners are involved in every single one of these programs to help customers move. And customers are really responding. Amazon Aurora is the fastest growing service in AWS history. Now, that's a stat we've talked about before. One stat you might not have heard before, and this is true, is that partner-led Amazon Aurora adoption is the fastest growing database service. So our SI partners are driving more Aurora in that accelerating service area than any other part. And so what does that really lead to? It goes back to the question of, are we automating our partners out of a job? The answer is a very firm no. There's a massive opportunity. 90% of database workloads are still relational, so most of the databases out there are relational. Most of our customers or potential customers have not moved all the way to the cloud yet. They've moved a portion, but they haven't moved everything, and we know that those migrations are accelerating. So we are partnering very closely with SIs who specialize in database workloads to move them to the cloud, to provide technical support, to provide planning, and we're providing programs to help them make that easier for customers. And that's our job. That's mine and Sai's job. So yeah, the general message there, this really great slide. We actually had to pay for this particular slide. The rest was all free. You just type that in. But the clouds are really kind of cool. It's on the cloud. We're in the clouds. You guys got to wake up. This is like day one. This is how you're supposed to be. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Sai here. And Sai is going to talk about the steps to practice building and how our programs map into that.
Thank you, Chuck. Hello, everyone. As Chuck talked about, what's the opportunity for partners in this space? What I'm going to be spending probably the next 30 minutes is, what are some of the steps that you could take to build a database practice on AWS? And what are some of the resources available to you to build your practice on AWS from AWS side as an AWS partner? Some best practices that based on working with a number of partners that we recommend, what we have seen working, as well as we will highlight a couple of customer success stories through our partners. We have a variety of partners. Some are very specialized in a particular use case or workload to full scale, full stack, MSP, as well as SI partners. So we'll share with a couple of customer and partner success stories as well. So as I said, if you're a partner that's maybe new to AWS, maybe you have a traditional database business, but you're looking at expanding your revenue stream by working with customers on AWS, how can you start, right? So we built a simple 5-step process, and hopefully this will be helpful. It starts with planning as any new business venture or new practice building starts. You got to know what are your capabilities, what are your strengths, what are some of your target customers, what type of services you want to provide. Maybe you're a big SI that could cover a lot of services. Maybe you're a specialist partner that want to focus on 1 or 2 areas. So you want to figure that out during the planning process, right? One important thing you want to figure that out as well is what are some of the gaps, and how do you get your target state either through a variety of stages such as ramping up, getting your first couple of wins on AWS, as well as scaling this out through marketing demand gen programs. So let's talk a little bit more details about each of these steps, right? So as I said, as I work with a number of partners that are brand new to AWS but are really good at database, and there are some things that are new to the cloud that you might want to factor that into your planning. A lot of your DBAs and engineers really know the MySQL, the Postgres, these Oracle databases, SQL Server, but you want to understand how do those engines work on AWS, right? Well, how does the support model differ on AWS versus on-prem? A lot of those things have to be taken into your planning, right? One thing about different type of services that you want to offer. Do you want to offer MSP only, or do you want to offer consulting? Do you want to offer migration services? So what I've done is a lot of times I went to partners and sat with them and helped them through this planning process. So we have, our team can help you as you're, thinking through this, right? So that's the planning process. Figuring out what's your current state, where do you want to, what do you want to do on AWS, and how can you get there by filling in the gaps. The second step is ramp up. There are 3 different, different folks that you want to, look at in terms of ramping up. The technical staff, which is key. But at the same time, your sales staff as well as marketing, right? The technical staff, it's about understanding how RDS works, how Aurora works, what are some of the different ways that you could troubleshoot, performance tuning, managed services on AWS. And for your sales staff, it's about how is it selling an AWS service different from an on-prem service or something on in a co-location facility, right? How does it differ in terms of support? What are the unique value propositions for running a database on AWS? So those, how do you identify a database opportunity? These are some of the things that you should be helping your sales staff understand and identifying the right opportunity and walking through the customer through this process. And then the marketing staff. How do you position this? How do you sell your services? How do you generate demand for your new service offering? So this is the ramp-up process. We do have, I'll talk about it in the next couple of slides, but we do have some resources that can help you with this. And the next one is getting a couple of Lighthouse customers, right? Getting your first 1 or 2 wins. Instead of trying to boil the ocean, let's start with 1 or 2 customers and try to get, maybe they may be your existing customers who you are helping with on-prem managed services or consulting services. Maybe they already trust you. Maybe that's a good starting point. You can work with them and see if you can help them building their systems and databases on AWS. So getting your first Lighthouse win is key. Getting your first couple of wins will give you that the confidence, your teams on how to they can figure out how is it different on-prem versus AWS. And one thing that I highly recommend is asking for that reference, right? You do a great job, but if it's not a referenceable customer, if there's no case study, it's not going to really help you in terms of demand gen and scaling. So for the first couple of customers, you really want to put that in there and say, can you be our reference? And we'll support you through that process. If there's anything that we could do from AWS side to help you to get your first referenceable wins, we'll be happy to support you. And then, replicating this. You got your first win, you got your second win. How do you replicate this? How do you scale this, right? Maybe you could create some industry-specific offerings, or maybe you can cross-sell to some of your customers. Maybe you could look at some new customers. So how can you scale this out through repeatable processes, through your technical staff and your sales staff, by building a repeatable and scalable process? And the next step is really scaling this out, maybe thinking about a cloud center of excellence. That's the core team that really be the core, the center of excellence, and then training your broader teams, not the teams that are just not database teams, but the sales teams, the marketing teams, that not just sell their services on AWS, but on-prem. That way, your whole organization is completely familiar with how to position this, how to sell this, and how to deliver these services. So that's the way to you can scale. And you say this is all good, but what can AWS provide as we build our practices on AWS? So we have a couple of resources that are available. So my team, we work with partners, both SIs and ISVs, as they build their practices on AWS. So let me walk through a couple of resources that you can use as you build your practices on AWS. So as I said, our team helps SI partners as well as ISVs actually build their practices on AWS. We have a couple of requirements to be part of the program, and there are some benefits available as well. So let me map to the practice building 5 steps to the resources that are available. That way, for every step of the practice building, you could see what are some of the resources that are available from AWS as an AWS partner that are available to you. Number 1, planning. During the planning phase, you have the partner team available for consultation, help with building your business case, TCO. We could spend some time with you either through Chime or even coming on site and helping you through the business planning process. And then during the ramp up, I think this is an important once you have your management buy-in and you say you want to build your practice on AWS, then the ramp up process is key. Having that executive buy-in, identifying a core group of people and training them on AWS services, Aurora and RDS is key. So we do have some resources, trainings available to train your team on technical staff, as well as some of the marketing and sales staff. We can help you with the training process. We can also, we also have some credits that are available if you want to go learn the service, experiment with the services, and figure out how to build an offering on top of it. We have sandbox credits, innovation credits that we could provide, so that your teams can build and learn by actually playing with the service. And then getting a Lighthouse customer as the third step. How do we help in this step? As you get your first or second win, you are really good at your traditional database, but as I said, there will be some things that are different on AWS. We could provide you technical support. We have access to product team. We have access to the specialist solution architects. We have access to the solution architects in your region. So we can help you. We could be, as part of your team, help you be successful for your first couple of wins. That way you're comfortable with doing those on your own as you do more of those. And the next step is replicating. As you try to scale this out, we have a lot of market development funds, proof of concept funds, as well as credits available that we could provide to you to scale your practice and business on AWS. We have a marketing center, partner marketing center. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. It helps you to drive demand gen through focused campaigns. That we have a lot of assets available to you that you could use. You don't have to start from the scratch. We could provide you a lot of content for those campaigns as you do these. And we also have some funds available that we could support as you do those campaigns. You could have guest speakers from AWS that could be presenting with you side by side as you do these campaigns, workshops, webinars, so that the customer knows we are working as a team. You're working closely with AWS. That gives them confidence as you do projects with them. And the next step is scaling. In the scaling step, it's taking to the next level, right? You got your first wins. You build your practice. You're replicating it. You're scaling it. This is where we include you in some of the programs that AWS is driving. We have our own sales kickoff. We include some of the go-to partners. We have a capability matrix and say these partners are doing these solutions. These guys are good at these. They have these case studies. So we could highlight you internally to our sellers so that they can reach out to you as they find the right customer with the right use case and say, maybe you could come and help this customer build a solution or migrate to AWS or manage their solution on AWS. So that would be actually really useful as you get inbound leads from AWS as you're proving yourself through your flagship initial couple of wins and through the business plan and your commitment. So we just reviewed the 5 steps as well as some of the resources available. I want to highlight some of the best practices based on what I've seen working with partners. This is a little bit migration heavy, so focused on migration partners, but this could be applicable for any customers that are any partners that could be MSP partners, consulting partners, even the bigger SIs or even boutiques. As a lot of times that if you're a technical person, you really get excited about the product and the service, and you start pitching that product or service to the customer, and sometimes we forget what are the customer's objectives here. What do they really want to achieve out of this? So you really don't want to forget about this, even though it's very basic to any selling process. So you want to understand, are they trying to save costs? Is it more of they want to move away from commercial engines and reduce costs and move to more open source based, such as RDS MySQL, Postgres, or Aurora MySQL, or Postgres? What is the driving factor for them, right? Are they doing a hardware refresh and they don't want to manage hardware anymore, trying to move to a more as a service type infrastructure model? What are some of the drivers, right? Are they trying to retire a data center? So those are some of the things you want to understand. What are their objectives so you could provide them the right solution? And the second one is start with an assessment. I know sometimes you get these you talk to a customer and say, okay, just let's start. Tell me how much it's going to cost. It's really it's really hard to give that number to them if you don't really understand their business objectives, the technical requirements, the functional requirements. So you want to start with a quick assessment. Maybe it's a quick one-day assessment that you can work with the customer and get all the details. Or maybe it's a full 1 week long assessment because it's a bigger data center migration deal. You want to know all the inventory of the assets, different compliance requirements, security requirements. So I would highly recommend starting with an assessment instead of jumping right into the solution, so that you provide the customer with the right architecture that meets their the needs, whether it's compliance, security, cost savings, whatever it might be. And then recognize the migration situations, right? There are different migration scenarios. One, maybe let's say you are running a MySQL community edition, you want a more high performance, highly scalable database. You may want to move to Aurora MySQL. It's more like a like-to-like migration. There's another scenario where customer is running on a commercial database and wanted to move to more open source database to reduce cost. That's more of a heterogeneous migration. So you want to understand what's the scenario here. Is it a homogeneous migration, heterogeneous migration? Does the customer have the expertise in the source and the target databases? What are some of their application dependencies? You want to understand all those scenarios. And then choosing the right engine, right? So we do offer a variety of database engines, starting from Postgres, MySQL, to Oracle, SQL Server, DynamoDB, MariaDB, even Redshift. So you want to understand there's a lot of factors that go into picking the right engine. Our recommendation is if it's a net new application, if you're starting from scratch, you don't have any migration scenarios, and if you need a relational database, start with Amazon Aurora. It supports both MySQL and Postgres. If you need a NoSQL database, we recommend DynamoDB. And if you need a data warehousing solution, we recommend Redshift. But sometimes there's going to be scenarios where you're actually migrating from an existing application that might have some requirements or dependencies. So that might lead you to maybe another commercial engine. So there are you want to do that assessment and get all the details so that you could recommend them the right engine. And this is something I really seen working well with a lot of partners, is creating a packaged offering that really helps your teams to start the conversation. Maybe a quick, we in AWS, I've seen the words using like jump start package or a quick start package, where you can go in and start with a quick 1 day, 2 day assessment, followed by a proof of concept and a migrating 1 or 2 workloads. So maybe the whole process could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 12 weeks. It clearly outlines what's the scope, what are some of the deliverables, what's the what's the cost, at least the ballpark. That way, when your seller goes and talking to the customer, it gives them an idea of, okay, this is what I'm looking at. This is what the complexity might look like, or the timeline. So I highly recommend looking at your core offerings, and whether it's migrations, or consulting, or managed services, creating a quick jump start to really accelerate the customer adoption. So now I want to share a couple of partner success stories. As I said, we are working with a number of partners in this area. I have 3 stories that I'm highlighting today, but there are a number of other partner success stories as well. Let's start with the Trimble and OpenSCG success story. So what OpenSCG? OpenSCG is a leader in a Postgres area. They help customers migrate from commercial engines to Postgres. They're really experts in this area. They've done a number of migrations in this area. So what they did in this scenario is a customer, Trimble, a fleet management company, was looking at, they have a huge data warehouse, and in order to improve performance, they have 2 choices. One, they could go to a bigger machine and refresh the hardware, so they got bigger CPU, bigger memory, but that triggers purchasing additional licenses from the commercial database vendor. So they were looking at options. What are some of the other alternative ways they could do this? And then they reached out to OpenSCG, who actually helped them migrate from Oracle data warehouse system to RDS Postgres. Since the data size is too big, they used AWS Snowball to actually migrate the data and then finish the migration without any hiccups. Actually, the quote from the customer VP was that it was such an uneventful thing, the customers didn't even notice such a migration happened. It happened during a weekend, and on Monday it was business as usual. And the result for the customer was that they were able to avoid a huge capital expenditure, and at the same time without causing any disruption to the customer. So OpenSUG, really, we started working with them for about a year now, and they reached out to us, and we got into the system. They became an AWS partner, and through this 1-year journey, the number of success stories and the number of customers they helped is really tremendous. And they really work very closely with us. Another success story is with Percona. Percona is a leader in MySQL, MongoDB, and a lot of open source data management. They provide both consulting, managed services. What they did with Lookout, a mobile security company, was that they helped. It's a startup company. It was growing super fast. They were looking at a solution that really scales as their user base grows. So they were actually already running on Aurora, on RDS, and they had like 35 master slave, sharding servers running on, and they were looking at it and say, I need someone to come in and help me optimize this architecture and design and optimize my AWS investment. So Percona went in. They helped the customer optimize the architecture, move from like 35 master slave shards to like 10 servers, and at the same time offering ongoing managed services to the customer. This really helped the customer optimize their AWS investment and save a lot of money, both in a capital as well as in OpEx. And another success story is with Data Whale and CO Clarity. So Data Whale is one of the leaders. I believe they're one of the biggest remote DBA company in North America. They offer a variety of services, both data management as well as business intelligence and application services. They helped a customer named CO Clarity. CO Clarity helps customers optimize their search engine optimization. What they did was, customer was running a MySQL Community Edition on-prem. They reached out to Data Whale for help, and Data Whale helped them migrate to Aurora and then actually offer managed services on top of that as well. So what Data Whale did was took a database that was running on a Community Edition and really made it highly performant and highly scalable through their managed services and consulting services. So these are some of the partner success stories. These partners work very closely with us. And as we said, we help them all through those phases, through the planning, all the way to, some of them are really good at already what they do, but we help them with some of the ramp up. Depending on the partners, there may be, as you do your business plan, there may be some gaps that are unique to you, that all those 5 steps doesn't apply to everybody, but if you have some gaps that you'd like AWS to help, and our team can help you. There are a number of other partners as well, like Rackspace, DBBest, North Bay. We're working with a lot of partners in this space, and these partners are actually helping customers use RDS and Aurora and offering a number of services such as migrations, managed services, and some of them even offering their products on AWS Marketplace. So with that, I think I'll just do a quick recap. Chuck talked about the opportunity for partners in this space. I talked about 5 steps to practice building on AWS. I also talked about some of the resources available to you as an AWS partner to build your practice on AWS. We also talked about some of the best practices, and we highlighted some of the customer and partner success stories in this area. So key takeaways: define your offering, define your, come up with a packaged offering. Assign resources, and executive commitment is important. Assign resources, train them, train both marketing, technical, as well as sales staff. And if you do need help, you do reach out to our team. I have the email alias there, AWS Database Partners at Amazon.com, and we are happy to help you, whether you're a new partner to AWS or an existing partner that want to generate new revenue stream by branching out into building more offerings in the database area. Please don't forget to rate our session in the mobile app. We always appreciate your feedback, so we could improve upon this. With that, I'm done with the session. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.